Folks, in today's show, we've got a special one. It's all about marathon training. And we've got a special guest in Kyle Sanok who's going to break down his multisport approach to running and low weekly mileage to deliver himself to a 2 hour and 34-minute marathon at the Boston Marathon. Goodness me, that is quite fast. How does he do it? It's all revealed in today's show. But I tell you, it's normal and understandable if you might look at our marathon training approach and think, is this just marketing nonsense? Well, you're going to understand the truth today. And if after listening, you're interested in discussing your training journey, whether it's in running, whether it's in triathlon or any endurance arena, if you're interested in one-to-one coaching or one of our squad programs, we're happy to set up a complimentary consultation. All you need to do is email us at info@purplepatchfitness.com and we'll set up a free call. We'll talk about your journey and how we might be useful. The most important thing is it's pressure-free, and we promise you that we'll give you some actionable and helpful advice for you on your journey, whether you're with Purple Patch or otherwise. And while I'm here as well, one other thing, and that's that we don't often have this, but we currently have 2 or 3 spots open on our one-to-one coaching roster. So if you want a deeply personalized, high-value partnership with one of our coaches, make sure that you highlight that in the call. We're going to go through, talk about everything that you need, and if it's the right fit for you, and then typically we're sold out, but we've actually got 2 or 3 spots right now, so we'd love to slot you in your journey. Either way, enjoy the show today. Take care. I'm Matt Dixon, and welcome to the Purple Patch Podcast. The mission of Purple Patch is to empower and educate every human being to reach their athletic potential. Through the lens of athletic potential, you reach your human potential. The purpose of this podcast is to help time-starved people everywhere integrate sport into life. And welcome to the Purple Patch Podcast. As ever, your host, Matt Dixon. And today, well, we've got a special one. I always love bringing athletes onto the show to share their stories and typically some challenges. As you're going to find out today, a little bit of skepticism, but also some solutions that you can use in your training. This is a story that certainly started with that healthy dose of skepticism. Is this marathon training program really going to be right for me? How can I possibly get ready for a marathon on such low mileage? And now you're asking me to ride a bike, even potentially swim as well. But it went on to create back-to-back PRs, a Boston qualification, and on less than 40 miles a week, a 2 hour and 34 marathon at Boston. Whew. Now we're going to deep dive into the journey, some of the challenges overcome, the value of coaching and more. My guest today is Kyle Sanok. He's a Purple Patch athlete and is a part of our bike community here. So he takes our bike classes, but also on the Purple Patch Run Squad. We're going to break down exactly what happened. Now this isn't rags to riches. This isn't someone that was sitting on the couch smoking cigarettes and suddenly found running. He grew up running. He had a background. He did it in middle school. He had fun. He even started to walk on to a Division I collegiate running program. So he has a running background. He didn't run through college. He stopped running, got on with his academics and a little bit of partying as well. But he came back to it now in his very busy life as a part of a startup here in San Francisco. And he had a group of friends training for marathons as well. He participated, but he bravely took on a slightly different approach. He leveraged multisport. He built the inner animal. He worked with Brad in a consulting basis, one of our coaches here at the Purple Patch Center. And what revealed itself was some stunning performance. Now, I'm not going to steal the spotlight. I'm not going to tell you how it all started. All I'm going to tell you is this is a wonderful story. If you're a first-timer, or if you're looking to break through to the next level, this episode is for you. Marathon training, multi-sport, and doing some incredible personal performances. I give you Kyle Sanok, and it's all in the meat and potatoes. All right, yes, it is the meat and potatoes. And as mentioned, we have a special guest with us, Welcome to the show, Kyle.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
We're going to talk about marathons and all such things, yeah? From skeptic to hero, at least purple patch hero.
I guess it's been a journey for the past 2 years, but excited to share. So
Okay, so we're going to dig right into this, and we're going to go through your journey and hopefully unearth some really actionable and educational insights for the listeners. I'm going to get to the punchline first, which is you pretty recently finished a stunning marathon in context, 2 hours and 34 minutes at the Boston Marathon, and it's been quite a journey to get there for you. So this isn't a rags to riches hero story. You did grow up a runner, but I think that we've got some really interesting educational insights that you can share and some perspective with the listeners. So as I like to do with all of our guests, though, let's get going. And I'd just love to understand your background, where you grew up, your family, your education, and how we basically delivered to this point. We'll dig into the sports in a couple of moments, but just give everyone a little bit of background on yourself. Who is Kyle?
okay, cool. Yeah, Kyle as a person before Kyle as a runner. I grew up in Washington D.C., so like right outside there in Northern Virginia, and I family of five, middle child. Growing up, I did some running. Mainly in high school, and then I went to Harvard, studied applied math and data science, and then moved out to San Francisco about 5 years ago to join a startup, kind of in like the fitnessy space. But yeah, that's the quick background.
With sports, I guess what were your first sports growing up? So were you always an endurance athlete, or did you do a little bit of everything?
It was, I think growing up I did the classic like suburban sport roster. So it was a little bit of Little League, which I basically got kicked off the team for not being good enough. There was a little bit of soccer, which I also wasn't good enough. And then there was some gymnastics in there. And I kind of settled on like swimming at one point, which I kind of get mad at my parents because obviously I don't have the build of a swimmer. I'm like, they should have pushed me in to stick with gymnastics. But then in 7th grade, we had to do a sport, and it was, again, like football or cross country. Those are the only two fall sports. And so I chose cross country, and that was kind of the start of my running journey. I think like 7th and 8th grade, I was pretty average, like wasn't winning any awards in the races. But then in like 9th, 10th, and 11th grade, I started to get into it like a little bit more seriously. And that's where I started to see like, okay, there's a little bit more success here. So I started, it was mainly running and then a little bit of swimming. And then I did the lacrosse, the soccer, all that stuff.
I do think that your choice between football and cross country was probably the best choice.
I will say my 5'9" build isn't. It's not suited for a linebacker. So
And you ended up going to Harvard.
Yes,
fantastic! What an experience! And you actually you walked on to Harvard to the college team there.
Yeah, I remember after I got in, I called the coach, and I didn't know anyone at Harvard at the time too, so it was like I didn't have this support system that was there. So I was like, oh, okay, a college team is going to show me, it's going to bring a lot of like guys into my social sphere, and I'm going to be invited to cool parties and everything. Well, that was definitely not the case. I walked onto the team, and I think that it just, the way that it was structured and the way that they kind of like, especially, D1 sports in general, like that's your whole life. And I think you were
I was, yeah. So I mean, it's as close as you can become, and obviously nowadays, full steam, almost effectively professional athlete.
Yeah.
And, I graduated thinking I don't really even have a degree. That's why I went to get my master's. So I understand, yeah.
And at that time, you couldn't even get like sponsorships from it. So I was like, well, I'm not going to make money from this either. So no, but I walked onto the team for about like a month or 2 months, and then kind of realized that it wasn't for me. It was taking over too much of my life, and I got injured like right when I got to campus from like the overrunning that I started to do. And so then I walked off after like a semester.
Because the approach, and obviously we're not going to dig into the sort of specific coaching positives or negatives of Harvard and everything, but like any program, it was big mileage, big running, and everything like that. So your system couldn't absorb it.
Yeah, it was like 2 runs a day. Like your casual run is like 14, 15 miles. And like I also, I think in high school had benefited from like doing a little bit more swimming and stuff. And I remember I would like sneak out of practice to try and go and like join club swim for a period of time. And then my coach was like, what are you doing? You're not supposed to go to club swim and then also be on the cross country team. But yeah, so then I kind of left after that.
And you went on after that to to effectively just do college life, a classic college experience,
Yeah. And I think
academics and partying and fun. I'm
yeah,
assuming.
lots of partying and fun. But I think I did like fall out of love with running a little bit. I think at that point it like had consumed so much of me in high school and then like a little bit of college that I was like, okay, I need to kind of like separate myself from this and like who am I outside of that? So yeah, then I just kind of did a normal college experience.
And you then, like, one thing led to another. You ventured on to move to San Francisco, part of a startup, very, very busy. Obviously, everything that startup life begins. And running was not central in your life. You did do your first marathon, yeah, which was the Big Sur Marathon. If everyone's ever done that, you can imagine Big Sur, beautiful but hilly, windy, and
Hilly
tough.
and windy. Yeah.
And you did it with a buddy. So that, just to give people a framework, what was your time in Big Sur?
It's like 350, 349.
349
Yeah.
or 350, which is, there's no comparison between that and the Cal International or the Houston or the Boston. This is a more challenging marathon, but that's our benchmark.
Yeah. And I think for that one too, it was like I signed up and I like wanted to, I was like, I want to do well. But then like I was, it was like I'd go on a run here, go on a long run there. Like I was Googling, like how to train for a marathon in like 2 months or something. And so it was kind of like a piece. I'd go to Barry's, I just kind of like was assembling my own like training kind of, but like didn't have any structured plan for that one.
And when you actually joined Purple Patch here, that you didn't actually enter through the Run Squad program.
No,
you first came to bike class.
Yeah.
And was that just a part of, hey, something different?
I think I started to do a little bit of like triathlon stuff in like 2022, 2023. And I remember I'd be like kind of decent in the swim, decent in the run. And then I was like abysmal on the bike. Like I was like, it was like I wasn't even placed on the sheet. So I was like, I need to kind of step up my like bike game a little bit. And I remembered that, these classes existed. So I was like, okay, it feels like they're both like athletic and technical that will actually make me faster. So that's kind of why I started doing the bike classes originally, was all for, I didn't even know there was like a marathon program at Purple Patch when I started.
And then you, let's talk about that, because you decided to take on a marathon.
Yes.
Did you have the intent goal of, I want to qualify to Boston? Was that actually one of the drivers?
When my friends and I I remember we were talking about it in like 2024-ish. Yeah, and we were like, okay, it'd be kind of cool to like, it would be cool to qualify for Boston. I think also going to school in Boston, there was like, a little bit of homecoming that I went to school wanting to do it, and then I fell out of love with the sport. So then I was kind of like, okay, I think it's time, 10 years later to kind of try and do it again. So I did the first, after Big Sur, I was like, okay, I think I do want to try and qualify for Boston. But I was like, I had, when you run a 350 and like I think Boston qualifying time was like 2:55, I was like, I don't know if I can hit that. That feels like a really fast pace for 26 miles. So I think there was a little bit of like doubt. It wasn't just a given. But I did want to do it. That was kind of the goal.
I remember in preparation for our discussion, I circled back with Max, who does all of our sort of athlete entry placement, stuff like that. And I encourage you to have a conversation with him. And I said to him, do you remember the conversation with Carl? And he said, yeah, he really does. And he said, and I've got it here on my notes, but he said, yeah, he was what I would label a skeptic.
Yeah,
and so why don't you talk about that? You come to this marathon give people the sort of the source of the skepticism at the start. You're looking to qualify to Boston. You signed up with your buddies. They've got their programs. You're going to use ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Why should you? Why don't you dig in with us?
Yeah, ChatGPT was the plan. But I remember I was coming to these cycling classes, and then I heard about like that you guys obviously do like the Run Squad and the marathon training program, and I was like, okay, that's like interesting to me. But also these are like, this is a triathlon studio. That's not a marathon studio. So I kind of hopped on with Max, and I was like, hey, listen, like, what? Give me the lowdown of the Run Squad program. Like, why is this different? Like, what about the Purple Patch program is going to be different? Because, and I kind of I remember saying to him on the call, I was like I'm going to ChatGPT and typing in like, marathon training for Boston and everything, and it's giving me a plan. So like, can I just follow that, or like, how beneficial is this? And I think he was like, looking back now, it's like, obviously it's just like completely different. There's the team element. There was the, like there's the community side of it. And I think he also was like, use the cycling classes and everything that you're already doing should be part of like,
Yeah,
your marathon.
integrate as a part of the program. Yeah.
Exactly. And so I think I was a skeptic because I was just like, my friends, their mileage was like 50, 60, 70 miles a week. It was, 5 to 6 runs a week. And I was like, that is what marathon training should be. And it doesn't seem like this program is that. So there was I remember hopping on like 2 calls where I was like expressing the doubt, but
Yeah.
he got me hooked. So
He did. Well, what you did is you jumped for it and went for it. But that must have been. I just want to hover on it. It must have been. It's a mark of courage because the running prescription of mileage per week was radically lower than your friends that you were going to go and ultimately compete against. Obviously, do the race socially with. But you were there. Was that a challenge to do that?
yeah, because I think like if you're choosing to start for a race, you want to make sure that you're like, and you're starting to think about your plan. I feel like you also want to be like, I'm choosing the best plan as if I'm going to invest 2 months, 3 months, 4 months of my life into something, you're like, I really want to freaking see the results on the other end. And so I think I was definitely like, is this going to be the right plan? Is this actually, I think it's also like, is this actually going to make me faster? Because I think that was
Yeah.
my concern of like, if you're trying to run a fast marathon, you do need to like, it kind of makes sense in your mind. You're like, I just need to run more and run more fast so that I can, or that's what my old thinking was. So I can like run more fast so I can do that for 26 miles.
Yeah.
So I was a little bit hesitant, but I remember Max was also like, you know what? He's like, try it for a month, see how you feel, and then we can kind of like go from there for the run squad specifically. So I decided to, take the lead.
When you reflect on that first program you built into your first marathon, where you did, spoiling the fun, you did qualify to Boston. Give the listeners a sort of reflection of what that training was like. How did you feel? Like you unlocked consistency, you didn't get injured along the journey. You always have a bit of double calf challenge. Is that a fair enough? Is that a fair enough summary of
It's
your
the left calf. It's the
left calf,
left calf
mostly?
challenge. Yeah. But I actually did. I didn't get injured, but I did get a little. I had like a moment where I had to go to Renee mid, but then it helped and it just made me
Okay.
feel better.
Okay, we'll come to Renee.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember like the start of it. Looking at the run squad program, I was like, oh, there are like 2 cycling. There's 2 cycle blocks. There's an optional swimming block, and then there's maybe like 3 to 4 runs a week. But I remember also thinking like, or I remember kind of like Brad telling me too, it's all flexible. And at the start of the week, you kind of move different things around. And I work at a startup now. And so I think feeling like I had control at the start of every week on Sunday to be like, okay, I have a big meeting this day, or I know I'm going to be out late this day. So I can just like move these different blocks around was like super key for me, just reducing the mental load of feeling like, oh, I have to do 6 runs a week and, get up at 6 a.m. and just do them. So I remember it was I was a little bit shocked by the lower mileage and, again, a little bit skeptical even when I started, but I think I would stick with the Tuesday classes. I think come to like the Thursday ones every once in a while, and I didn't feel like my fitness was dropping at all, which was like a big, that felt, you needed to feel that obviously while marathon training, but it was definitely a little bit of a shift than comparing to my friends on Strava who were doing, the 50, 60, 70 miles a week.
And if we go to the week before that first race, if you can remember your mindset, did you just the Boston qualifying time was 2:55? Were you confident you could do that time?
Oh, absolutely not. No.
You had
No.
absolutely not.
I was hedging to everyone. I was like, if I go sub 3 hours, I'll be happy. I think it did require a little bit. It required a little bit of trust
A
in
bit
the
of
program.
blind faith, almost in truth, yeah.
For sure, because I think obviously in marathon training, you're never doing the marathon kind of leading up. One thing that I remember Brad did that really helped is he halfway through the training block, so I would hop on like some one-on-one calls with him, and he was like, I said, hey, I kind of signed up for this, half marathon, and he was like, that's great, like do it and just feel it out and see how it goes. And my time there was like pretty good. It wasn't anything crazy, and it was still like, oh, this is going to be a challenge for the marathon, but I did have like little moments of check-ins and little moments with Brad where he'd be like, no, like look at this time or look at you did this pace or something like that. And there were enough sessions that like gave me a touch of confidence, but certainly it was never like a given of, oh, I got the 2, the Boston qualifying in the bag. So yeah, there was a little bit of blind faith, but I felt prepared in a way. Yeah, and I felt healthy too, which I think was the other big part of it.
Vibrancy and health. So they want to know, what did you go? You were aiming for 255. What did you go?
It came in at just over 240, so
Yeah.
that
So
was
you just made it by 15 minutes.
There were moments where I was like looking at the watch, and I was like, I think when you get to mile 20, you're like, oh shit, I got this.
Yeah, mate. Goodness me, that's
it's a nice
amazing.
PR from the first one.
So that's a great, and from there, we sort of re-anchored, and you've qualified to Boston. Now I want to dig into the journey to Boston. You've mentioned two people, Renee and Brad, and so I want to focus on that because I think there've been two key parts of your support network to go there. The other one I would say, or the other two I would say, is the fun community in that bike room there, but also your buddies that you train with. It's really important. Like you've managed to really keep the social engagement of all of this going. Let's talk about Brad, because you're on a for lack of a better phrase, a one-to-many squad program where it's autonomous. You get the flexibility that you talk about, but all participants, Tri Squad, Run Squad, all of our squads have the option to leverage consultations where you can really affordable $50 go and have a consultation with Brad. You were leveraging those all the way along the journey. Dig into how that was beneficial, maybe with setting the path, building your confidence, course correcting when perhaps you were questioning, troubleshooting, etc. I'd love to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, I think I remember, to go back to the first conversation with Max too, one of the things I said was like, it feels like if it's one, if it is more one to many, like, and I'm going to be, paying for a program, like, should I just have an individual coach too? And then it felt like thinking about the one-on-one calls that I was able to do, like, I kind of got the best of both worlds. And so yeah, the way that I would kind of hop on with Brad maybe like once every month. And I think part of it was like, in the training, you're always going to have spirals, right? Of like, hey, this session felt, you do a tempo run, you're like, I felt really flat at, 30 minutes in. And it's easy to kind of like, again, spin yourself up in spirals and then go to ChatGPT and ask all these questions and everything. But I think I would hop on with Brad, and at the start, it was kind of like, hey, let's like explain why we're doing the, like what the next 3-4 weeks looks like and like why you're doing each session. And so I think he also was able to add color of like, oh, it's really important you come to like this bike class because it's going to show you this thing. Or it's like this tempo run, it's really important that you prioritize this one because it's going to, give you a sense of how your legs are going to feel at mile 18 or whatever the reasoning was. But I think he was able to add color in the program that made me feel like, one, you guys know what you're talking about, which is nice to feel.
That's helpful.
That's helpful. And then two, I think like I was also able to communicate to him like, hey, I have a trip, I have a wedding this weekend or something. Like, I'm not going to be able to do this run, or like, how should I like, is this one more important than this one? And so I think that there actually was a lot of working with him to kind of incorporate it into my life of, I have these things coming up, which ones should I prioritize, which ones can give, and kind of understanding those trade-offs. So those were really helpful, I think, like early on. And then I think as you get further in the marathon training, I definitely hit one of the, like a taper spiral a little bit, or like the end of the training spiral where you're like second guessing all of your training up until that point. And I remember hopping on with Brad and I was like, I'm freaking out. Like, I was like, how are we going to do it, Boston? The course looks so hard. Like the times that I'm going for, I haven't like trained at that pace yet. And I think, again, it was a lot of just like reassurance and feeling like he was invested in me as an athlete and could, again, speak to like, you did this session, you did this session, you did this session. Like, I can see the progress and you're going to be fine. So there was a lot of just like, him talking me off the edge too, to a certain extent.
It's a great example of what coaching is, which is to serve as a partner and sounding board, but continually helping you, A, retain perspective, and B, stay grounded in that. Because when you're in the weeds and you're doing it, every athlete of any level, it's really, really easy to stay down in these weeds and lose traction because you're only as good as what happened yesterday. That's the sort of dirty truth of it. And I think that's so important. I think it's one of the most important parts of the program, by the way, when people really leverage that, as you say, you sort of get the best of both worlds. What about pacing? Because, Boston is a different beast, and B, you'd done 240, but you didn't want to go there and just. Inside of you, you must have wanted to also go faster. Is that truth?
Yeah. I was definitely like, I want to try and PR. And I think I also wanted to commit to like, I remember I think I signed up for Run Squad for the first marathon only like with 2 months to go before the race. And so it was a tight turnaround. Whereas this one, I gave myself a little bit more time. So I was like, okay, I'm preparing a little bit more. But yeah, are you saying for pacing for the race or
pacing for the race, or actually, let me course correct on the question a little bit. I'm interested in your mileage because Brad did also customize a little bit for you on that. So give people, because we haven't actually talked about running mileage, and I'm sure listeners are going to be interested in that. As you went through, your sort of baseline of running was give or take about 30 miles a week, and then you ramped it up a little bit to prep for Boston, yeah?
It was lower. It was lower than that before.
It was lower than that before that. Okay, so there you go.
I would squeeze in maybe like, I don't know, like a 15, 20 mile weeks before. And that's more of like a trail run with friends or like, that was never trying to hit any minimum.
Yeah.
But yeah, for the first one, I think I was doing like 30 to 35 miles a week. And I was really hesitant to go more than that. And then, for this program, it was like, for this past block, I think it was 30 miles a week pretty much. And then towards the end of it, it was like 40, 45, I think at the most.
So that's really worth just pausing on a little bit, because many people would just not believe that it is possible. Yeah. So you're 240 off of 30 miles a week or so, and then or 25 to 30. Then you go into this program, a really good foundation of 30, and then just into that last 5, 6, 7 weeks, building it up, just pushing the envelope a little bit, and through there retaining multi-sport as well. Yeah.
So I would do the cycling classes, and like whenever on the calendar it said like swim or elliptical or row, I would kind of like throw in one of those.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. And Boston, how did the race day go? Like, was it?
The conditions were perfect, so I'll give a little bit of my time to the slight tailwind that we had. But no, it was great. I came in at like 2:34.
2:34. I mean,
2:34:49. So just under.
Just under.
Trying to. Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, I haven't. For folks listening that aren't a part of it in our bike class, I have hovered on that performance a little bit, poking fun at you. But I haven't had the opportunity to say frickin' well done. Like I'm incredibly proud of what you did there. It's it is quite simply a fantastic performance.
I appreciate it.
Really is.
If I knew it was going to get this much airtime, I would have tried to run fast.
Yeah, well, you should have gone 2:32. So I did point out to him that the fastest Boston Marathon runner that I've ever coached was 2:04. So you still have a little bit of ways to go as you go through there. But and the day itself, because there's the more challenging terrain at the end. Did you have kind of one of those days where it just went, like you just felt like you nailed it, or did you really get into the box and suffer near the end? What was it like?
Yeah, I think the miles 22, so right at the end after the hills and everything, 22 to 26, I was like, this race just needs to be over. I was like, I am so like, I am toasted. But I felt like the execution up until like I was feeling pretty good, the downhill, the start, the first 5 miles, I like settled into my pace. And then from 5 to 16, where you're kind of doing the gentle like rolling hills, I was hitting kind of like the 555s, 552s, 557. I was like, okay, I like feel good. And I think this is actually where a lot of the training of kind of like feeling effort too versus only just trying to focus on numbers was really helpful, because it was like, oh, I actually am like, I know how this pace should feel. I know this effort should feel. And so then when I hit the hills on 15 to 21, it was like more based off of, I remember chatting with Brad about this, like more based off effort, like, your speed will drop and like, that's fine, but just feel like you're putting in that consistent effort. And then I kind of was, I hit those, and I think I was still on my like time. Well, I was above my time goal, which was great. And so then I think at the end, it was just kind of like, let it fly. I got a blister pop at like 22 and there's blood all over my foot. And I was like, at this point, just gotta keep going. But
and I mean, that's one thing that you hold on that we haven't discussed as much, because even you go back to thinking Boston qualification 255 and then going 240, if you were purely metrics based, you would have run a 254 or 253. So you really did lean into the inner animal, as I like to call it, and seeing what flowed out. But you built that over your training. Yeah, that's how you trained. You still ran with a Garmin, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Yeah. So you still
got my Garmin here.
Yeah. So there you go. It's on there. But you still had that as a tool, but you really built that sense of self. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there were a few. Honestly, it's been those Tuesday classes, the cycling classes, that I think have really like. I think those are the ones that, and the Thursday ones too, where like they get so hard and you kind of have to like, I don't know, think like, or the phrase that you always say is, the walls are going to kind of come closing in and you have to familiarize yourself and kind of acquaint yourself with the discomfort. And I think that was super true during the race. Like there are going to be parts that feel uncomfortable, but like knowing what you can do or knowing what you have done in the past and like trusting that, I think kind of helps carry you through those like last miles in the marathon. So
it's terrific. One last sort of question I want to ask is around Renee, our physical therapist here, who's actually been on this show. She's terrific. She's part of our center here, and it sort of this question covers both Brad and Renee a little bit, because you saw Renee when you had the niggle, less the injury in the first build, but then you started to work with her more consistently in a more proactive.
Yeah.
So I think Brad suggested it and say, let's get in front of this. Let's set up your calf so that it can handle the load. So how was that experience? What did she do for you then?
Yeah, so I remember it was during the first training block or the first marathon, I had like a little calf thing and I was like, again, freaking out, spiraling. And so I went to Renee and I was like, hey, I just want to be able to run this race. I want to try and qualify for Boston. And then we like really drilled into the issue. Like, honestly, it fixed, didn't feel it during the race. And like, that was like, I think a month out. So it was like pretty tight there. So then coming in front of this one, in front of Boston, chatting with Brad, it was like, let's just get in front of everything, right? Like, let's do a quick little diagnostic on like the form, on the calf, on the different, like, where you're putting strength, where you're not putting strength, everything like that. And so I had like a little program that I would do before my runs, and sometimes afterwards. But I think I had like 1 or 2 sessions with her at the start of the training block, and then injury free.
Clear injury free as you go through. Well, it's the reason I wanted to ask that question, just to provide context, is that's quite rare. Most people see, I like to call them body mechanics, but physical therapists or anything like that, as just problem solvers when something has happened. But when you're proactive and you use it in partnership, it really can be a catalyst to remain, the magic word in performance, consistent.
Yeah.
And that's the key thing. So I want to close, and I'm going to ask this question through 2 lenses in many ways. And I'm just going to, very interested in your advice. And first I'm going to give you, what would be your piece of advice for maybe someone that is getting ready to do their first marathon? I'm going to ask 2 questions. The first one is like, they've never done it before. They're fearful of the distance. They don't know what's coming. It is a huge personal challenge. What would be, if you could go back in time, your 1 or 2 pieces of advice for those people?
Okay, that's a good question. Honestly, I'd say the first one would be find a community, and that can be 1 or 2 people. That can be a much larger team to be a part of. I think, doing some of the stuff with Purple Patch and being able to run with like Jenna or Griffin or Steven and, having Brad, and then also signing up for the race with friends that were, kind of on that same journey with me, I think was nice, because first, if you have people who have done marathons before, when you're having your little spirals or you're like having questions about things, you can go and ask them. And I remember like Griffin, Jenna had done Boston before, and they're like, oh yeah, like this part is going to feel this way and this part's going to feel this way. And so I think having those opinions and those perspectives, I think were just super kind of like good and grounding for, any problem that comes up. So I think community was definitely like, and also running can be pretty isolating to a certain extent. So being able to do long runs with friends or tempo runs with friends or hill workouts and stuff, I think having people to do it with just makes it so much better. So I'd say that's the first one. And then I think the second piece is like, God, it's such a cliche, but it is kind of a like trust the process to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Like if you have your plan set and you believe in, Run Squad, Purple Patch, or whatever plan you do, like you're not gonna, you're never running the marathon to completion, right? And so you kind of have to trust that like the fitness that you're building and the plan that you're building is preparing you for the hills or the, you know, the pace that you need to run. And I think it's easy to kind of doubt that as you go through it, but just believing that you're actually putting in the work as long as you're actually putting in the work, I think is the other, the other piece of advice I'd give.
And would there be any, my second question would be, would there be any differentiated advice for somebody that is at a level and just says, you know what, I want to take this to the next level? And I want to give you the context of why I'm asking this is because so many people think that it's just throw more at the problem. So they've got to 3 hours, let's make it up. They've got to 4 hours and they want to get faster than that. What's the piece of advice to say, you know what, I want to up level, I want to break through, maybe it's qualifying to Boston, maybe it is, but it's like, yeah, I want to go faster.
I think this is where like my old mindset was exactly like what you said. It was just like run more, right? Like run faster, go longer, like, push a 20 miler at like 6:30 pace, whatever it is. And I think that this most recent block was like, there would be a day that it was like just a hill workout. And it was like, maybe that was like 8, 9 miles, but it was like a focused hill workout. Like that's what I was kind of like centered on. And then there'd be a day that again was like just tempo. And so I would focus on that. Or like the Tuesday classes where you're like dying at like doing your threshold for 5 minutes or something, like those in like the sum is, or whatever the
sum is greater.
Some of the greater than the, than the individual parts, that's the phrase. And so I think that like, if you really want to get faster or really try and like break through, I think it's starting to focus on like getting really good at all these components, which when you kind of put them together, it's like, it allows you to do the hills from 15 to 21, pretty effectively. And I felt super confident going into that because every week there was like a hill workout on the Run Squad program. I'd go over to Twin Peaks and I would like do it, and they were terrible a lot of the time, but like it felt like I had kind of like trained each part, and you don't need to be doing like the full marathon every week to feel like you're going to be able to run the marathon.
Yeah, it's funny when I listen to your story, the one thing that you managed to avoid is always seeking validation that you were ready or you could run the pace. And so that like just going to execute the parts and believing that they would mesh together. And I think that's, and that wasn't without obviously absence of fear and inspiring. That's all a part of it. That's because it's something that's got meaning for you. You're dedicated a lot, but really having that courage is a differentiation. It's a real sign of what I label athletic IQ. So a little bit of bravery. So
I'm a student from you guys. I'm trying to learn, but I guess that was like doing a tempo run and then going like slightly faster than the pace. You're like, there's again a little bit of doubt of like, can I hold this for 26 miles or whatever, that. But then like just again trusting that it's like all going to come together and that you guys know what you're talking about was nice.
Well, Kyle, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it, and thank you for sharing your story. And I guess what everyone's going to know is what's next.
Well, I have Alcatraz on Sunday. That one's just going to be fun. And then I think maybe we'll tackle another marathon that's slightly less hilly next year. See if we can...
see if you can go under the magic marker.
We'll... we're not going to put a time to it just yet.
Exactly. Hey, run free with the time. Why don't you say sub 2:33, because then you can go 2:23 instead.
Okay, so. I can stick with that one for now. Thank you for having me.
Keep it simple and keep having fun, but really appreciate your time and a lot of fun. It's a great conversation.
Thanks for having me.
Take care. Cheers, mate. Well, folks, that was pretty stunning. What a great interview. I really enjoyed it. Special thanks for Kyle for giving his time and obviously his wisdom and insights with everything along his journey. If today inspired you, and then share this episode with your friends. A good review always helps. And also, if you want to discuss your training journey with you, to up level, to go and succeed something special, whether it's in running, in triathlon, or any endurance arena. If you're interested in one of our squad programs or one-to-one, remember we do have a couple of spots right now open. Just email us, info@purplepatchfitness.com. A completely pressure-free conversation with one of our coaches to ensure that you can leave that conversation with some action to help you go and perform well, and if it's right, a great partnership with us at Purple Patch. All right, we'll see you next time on the show. Take care. Guys, thanks so much for joining and thank you for listening. I hope that you enjoyed the new format. You can never miss an episode by simply subscribing. Head to the Purple Patch channel of YouTube and you will find it there and you could subscribe. Of course, I'd like to ask you, if you will subscribe, also share it with your friends, and it's really helpful if you leave a nice positive review in the comments. Now, any questions that you have, let me know. Feel free to add a comment and I will try my best to respond and support you on your performance journey. And in fact, as we commence this video podcast experience, if you have any feedback at all, as mentioned earlier in the show, we would love your help in helping us to improve. Simply email us at info@purplepatchfitness.com or leave it in the comments of the show at the Purple Patch page and we will get you dialed in. We'd love constructive feedback. We are in a growth mindset, as we like to call it. And so feel free to share with your friends. But as I said, let's build this together. Let's make it something special. It's really fun. We're really trying hard to make it a special experience. And we want to welcome you into the Purple Patch community. With that, I hope you have a great week. Stay healthy, have fun, keep smiling, doing whatever you do. Take care.